All right, so today we're going to be talking about the article that is on the wiki site Best Management Practices. And I think given after last month's BMP conference and after some of the updates that came with this last year, I think it's a good time to update everybody and also give an opportunity to present the resources that we currently have on the wiki site for Best Management Practices. Now, I know last week we had a discussion with Craig, Joel, Grant about headlight progress payments and fiscal type codes and things like that. So I just wanted to give an opportunity if anybody had any lingering questions from that to ask that right now. I know Craig's not here, but definitely relay any questions and try my best to answer them as well. I do know that that update should be for type codes is something that's in the works with Headlight, and we will be releasing that here shortly. I know fiscal and some projects have been requesting the breakdown, especially for utilities on some of the projects. So Headlight and the econ team is working to get that up and running for you folks. So that should be coming here shortly. There also should be a mention in the newsletter on what will be coming. And with this release, it's not really anything that you'll need to configure or work on your end. We may reach out to ask to clarify funding type information, but other than that, it should just be a matter of turning it on and then it showing on your progress payments. With that being said, for next week, for the next 2 weeks, there'll be holidays, so we won't be having this office hours on Thursday morning. But the week after that, I believe it is on the January 8th. We will be holding a change order training, one of the last few, and we'll be going over lots of different examples for justification and the internal document for a change order. So that will be in a couple weeks after the couple of holidays break that we will be having. So if you have any questions, we'll be sending out those invites shortly. I canceled the invites for the next 2 weeks. So it shouldn't be on your schedule anymore, but the following week should be. Okay, anyway, let's get into the topic for today, which is best management practices. So I'll actually start from the beginning. So if you go to the HL Wiki site, navigate to the construction page. We've went over this before, separated into 3 sections: pre-construction, construction, and closeout. And underneath the construction phase is the best management practices. And I guess you can actually make an argument that it is also during the pre-construction phase as well, where there are items that you have to deal with pre-construction. I will go over that in a little bit, but for the most part, obviously, it's BMPs during the active construction phase. So we have a lot of external links on this post, and we kind of broke it down into a way that would be most easily digestible. So, what is a BMP? And the purpose of this article is, if there was a new engineer, if there was a new inspector who didn't know much about BMP, they'd be able to capture all this information in at once. But for those who even know BMPs, all of the resources will constantly be updated on this page, and we'll be sure to send out updates when things get updated. But the first section is, what is a BMP, right? So it takes you to an external link that kind of explains some examples. Obviously, we have this little pamphlet here that is helpful at a snapshot level, but then also, we have the BMP field manual and a bunch of those other resources are available to you on the bottom here, the construction BMP manual. Obviously, SWIP template, SWIP formation, a SWIP amendment template. Gotten a lot of questions and requests from the econ email about, hey, where is the SWIP amendment template? What are the necessary items that you need to have when you are amending your SWIP. So we have the resources for templates here. But going back up to the top, first start off with what is BMP, right? And then we go into the specifications where this applies to. So 107.13 calls it out initially. And then also section 209, obviously, on all of your projects, the section 209 number is the pay item that has to do with BMPs. So it calls out the section 209 and explains the materials, so the submittals that are needed, the pre-construction requirements of what needs to be completed before construction even starts with BMP. So obviously SWIP, site-specific BMP, a submittal needs to be completed. That is one of the most important things and one of the biggest pre-construction submittals before you start an active construction job. Then there's also a couple of meetings, right? And in specific to 209, need a water pollution, dust, and erosion control meeting. That's something that's required, right? Something that you need to do before construction starts. So again, we're working on a specific template for this, and with the ACC being updated with meetings and the template ability at a project level getting updated, we'll be able to hopefully have an agenda template for you already on ACC when your project starts. So that'll be helpful for you folks. It'll give you a starting point. But anyway, all of the resources that I've started to go over here are available here on this article. And then next, moving into the specific forms that the environmental team and the environmental consultants for HDOT are looking at when it comes to BMPs. In specific, two forms, weekly and monthly forms, right? The weekly form, there is a video here. And I don't expect that you're listening to it right now, but you can watch the video on this article, but it essentially goes through the process of how to submit these forms. At first, it is the weekly form, right? And all projects should be doing and submitting this weekly form. Tracking the weekly BMP inspections here, all projects. And that is explained, we'll explain a little bit later on the BMP COCUR review from last year. And obviously I've been mentioning COCUR reviews as we're going into 2026 soon. So at the beginning of next year, the COCUR reviews will be started for the year 2025. So a lot of these different criteria that you saw last year are going to be the same with small short updates. But we'll be sure to get those rubrics out to you as soon as possible and updated on the wiki site for 2025. But the BMP week, as I said, BMP weekly form should be completed by everyone on all projects, right? But as stated here, BMP monthly forms are only required for MS4 areas. So Kahului and Oahu. At the very end of this video, it shows the monthly compliance report, and both of these forms are linked here. If your project does not have those forms on ACC, then you need to take these and upload it as a form template to your project. If you properly set up your project with the HDOT standard template, or if it falls down from the design construction template, it should have this form here. No questions asked. However, sometimes if you do not add people in the correct role when you're adding them to projects, it may not allow them to see this form. So when you're starting a project out, make sure that you go into the form template and you go into the settings and you're able to see, well, I might as well show it to you guys. So if you go into forms, and then you open up form templates, then, and this applies to any form, right? So have all of the different folders that we set up for this project. And if we click into a form, so I'm going to go into this one, you have to set up permissions. Now, from the template level, we can control it by roles, but if you're not setting up your projects to the correct rows, then obviously it won't apply to the form. So a lot of econ request tickets have been, hey, I can't see this form. Why is there no template? Why can I not use this form in ACC? And it's because that this edit permissions is probably empty, like it is here. So there are a couple of options. You can add individuals, you can add companies, and you can add roles. And based off of the template, it'll start off with the roles. So it may have inspector, then you have that here. It may have engineer. Also, it may have individuals. So if you have projects that you know who's going to be doing this every week, you can set an individual. And you can also set company. So if I had a company that I know is going to be doing this, managing the project, then I can add the company here. And similarly, I can do the same for here. So if you're having issues with not being able to see templates, most of the templates that you'll need are added to the library. So it should automatically be showing up on your project, regardless of if you're using the template at the beginning of the project or not. So if you're not seeing it, it's most likely because it is a permission error. So please be sure to go into your projects and check those out to make sure that you have access properly to those. Okay, and then we have a new guide. So I'm not entirely sure if you guys have seen this guide. This is the old one that we had previously from 2023, but we updated it here in 2025. And this is what it looks like. So it essentially will go over the process, the step-by-step process of how to take it from an inspection to a form in ACC to titling the form, to making sure that we are clicking the proper checkbox here on this form. Because obviously there are different types. Based off of the weekly inspection, there are different types of inspections that need to be done. So obviously you have your typical weekly inspection where that will happen once a week, but then there's also an event report, right? So if the inches of rain threshold is higher than quarter inch, right? We need to do a report like this the day after. So we need to make sure that this form is not only utilized for the weekly, once a week BMP inspection report, it's used for event reports. Also, every month should be having the third-party pre-construction verification inspection report, or the independent inspection. Excuse me, sorry, the independent third-party inspection form. And then also, this form is also utilized for the pre-construction verification inspection report. So again, a lot of things come before the project even starts, right? Pre-construction verification inspection report, that's the first inspection that you'll be utilizing this form for. Obviously, you have the pre-construction BMP meeting, where you'll go over the SWIP that's been submitted. And then obviously the SWIP is the biggest submittal that's going to take time to review and go over and before the project starts. And the SWIP is obviously something that this will be based off of, and something that you'll need to look at or have your inspectors look at every single week to make sure that they're keeping up with that SWIP. And if anything changes, obviously need to submit an amendment, go through that process. Right now we have the SWIP amendment template on here, but more to come in terms of actual article of the entire process of submitting an amendment. And that process may get updated a little bit, but we'll be sure to include it when we have everything worked out with how it's currently working with some of the software that we have. Okay. So moving forward, this is essentially explaining what I just explained. Above quarter inches, there are various different types of report: weekly report, third-party inspection, event report, pre-construction verification report. And what's important on this form, and I know there can sometimes be a misconception where headlight is the only place that you'll be taking and uploading photos. It's not true. Especially for your BMP reports, need to take photos of the deficiencies, and additionally need to take photos of the corrective action taken by the contractor for those deficiencies. Number one, if we need those on these forms, and also, based off of the ERP, based off of the field manual, there are various different timelines depending on what level of BMP deficiency it is, right? And so there are different timelines for when the contractor needs to correct it. And obviously, picture tells 1,000 words. So we need to be sure that we're taking photos and verifying the deficiency, and then also having the contractor take photos, or you take photos of the corrective action, and then have that uploaded here, as we'll go over the corrective action portion of it a little bit later. But a couple of things. I know a lot on your project. There may be things like drain inlet filters that are at various different locations on your project. So we want to make sure that we have an item on this BMP report where it has every location for that. And what we found helpful is at the beginning of the project, during your pre-construction verification inspection report and your first BMP inspection, if you put down all of the BMPs that are supposed to be active and there at the beginning of the project, and according to your SWIP, if you put it all down at the beginning of the project, and then for the next inspection, you simply copy this one over and then make the changes, right? So sometimes, BMPs get removed if there's an amendment, some things get changed. Sometimes, or most cases, your project is probably phased. So depending on the different phase, different BMPs will get removed. So we need to be sure. And what's easiest is if you put all of the BMPs at the beginning of your project on this list, and take the time to do that at the beginning so that you can just copy it over and remove for the subsequent BMP weekly inspection forms. Okay, as I said, important adding photos. So taking photos, there's two ways you can do it, similar to Headlight, where you can take a picture on your iPad, you can upload it from your photo library later to this form, or what you can do is you can take it directly in ACC and have it upload automatically, which is the option that I recommend, as you eliminate that middle step in between. And also, if you take the picture, if you have your inspectors take the picture in ACC here, then it'll automatically timestamp it, which I'll show you a little bit in the issues. It'll automatically timestamp when you took the picture. So that is helpful. Okay, so yeah, how to upload a photo, uploading it to the references. You can upload different attachments, or obviously you can go directly to the photos area and upload your photo that you took in ACC already. And then following, this is a big update to the form that was done last year, right? It was, a lot of people were just noting down, the BMP deficiencies and saying that there are corrective action that is needed, but they weren't actually following up on the corrective action. So this updated form takes care, and it added 2 columns for the date corrective active description. Now, this is helpful and something that we need to make note of, right? And we need to update when the form goes through. But there is what we found useful in the projects that I was working on, what I found useful was this issues module. And the reason why this is useful is because what you can do is you can create an issue. Now, you can take it immediately from the form, right? You can connect this issue to the form, and then it'll show where this issue, this deficiency came from, like what BMP inspection from what week, and you just automatically link the two. And then it'll be helpful for those of you that are in the MS4 areas. When you're doing your monthly compliance form, you can easily compile and know what deficiency, what issue came from, what BMP weekly inspection form, and also you can reference the 4 BMP weekly inspection forms that you had in your monthly compliance form, and it'll have all that information stored with you at month end time, right? But the most important thing when it comes to issues is you are able to track the corrective action. You're able to give the contractor due date. So if you create an issue here and you title it this way, and this is just kind of the convention that we utilize on one of the projects. Obviously, the convention does not need to be the same, but just titling it so that you understand what the deficiency is and the title of it. Status open. So obviously, when you initially create the issue, it'll be open. You can enter in location. You can enter in stationing of where it is. These are all preset fields that when you select a BMP issue type, it'll automatically come up here. So you'll automatically have options. So ensure that the following boxes are filled in. So these are the ones that are most important. The stationing, so essentially the location of where it is, activity type of BMP. So this activity in BMP, it's a drop-down. So you'll be able to select from the various different types of deficiencies that we already have set and that's already on your projects. So images are attached, should be attached to the issue as well. So we want to be sure that we're connecting all of that data together so that we can just make one export of it if and when the time comes for when you need to elevate a particular issue. So if you click on the issue, you can go into the status, and once the issue is open and assigned to the contractor, you can set it into pending, and then once the contractor uploads the corrective action, you can set it into review. That's when you'll take it into consideration, look at it, see if they follow the correct guidelines according to the BMP field manual. And if not, then you can take proper action according to the ERP. We'll talk a little bit about the ERP a little bit later. So next, once the deficiency is addressed, the contractor will attach the images. And so what will happen here is you'll be able to go back, and since it's connected, you'll be able to have that corrective action photo connected to this BMP form. And then you can also just enter in, was it corrected? Yes, and then describe what was corrected from the BMP report. So obviously, what's cool about issues is you're able to, I'm going to scroll to the issues page. So this is a project that was done and what was the project that is closed now. But what you can see here is that you have a BMP deficiency. This was created as an issue, and we provided instructions for the contractor. Contractor then uploaded the picture of the deficiency, right? Missing gap in biostat. And then, as you can see, everything is timestamped, right? So this is extremely helpful when it comes to determining, whether the contractor followed the guidelines within the BMP field manual, ERP, all of that. So want to be sure. So some of the important information entered here is the date that you notified the contractor, amendment required. So this will obviously prompt whether an amendment is required and prompt the contractor to create and submit that amendment request to the HDOT team. And then also BMP activity. This is a pre-selected drop-down list. So you're able to go through and determine which deficiency and what action is needed by the contractor. BMP measures, so what type of BMP is affected by this deficiency. And then obviously the date that we found it, the date of inspection. So the process is, you create this issue, you describe what the deficiency is, you upload the photo of the deficiency, and then you assign it to the contractor. Once it's assigned to the contractor and it's completed, or the corrective action has been taken, you should have the contractor take a picture, upload the picture. So as you can see here, 2 days later, contractor uploaded the picture, corrected the missing area of biostat has been corrected. So then they uploaded the picture here and then responded back and said, this has been corrected. And from there, I would close out this issue. I would go back to the form here and I would say this has been completed. And obviously, for the BMP form, it needs to be signed by the duly authorized person. So we want to be sure that we do not forget this step, and we have to make sure that we get these forms signed. So once all of that's completed, get the form signed, and that is your BMP weekly inspection report. Now, there are two areas where we have additional information on ERP. A lot of times what we've seen out in the field is a deficiency has been assessed and it becomes reoccurring, right? So in order to avoid that, right, we have this ERP where we have certain guidelines as to how we should respond to contractors that are not addressing the BMP deficiencies. And this may lead to liquidated damages, something that the contractor never wants, right? And ultimately, we don't want. But at the same time, if we don't have anything to go up against and to enforce this, then obviously a lot of times the contractor will not be incentivized to fix the issue, right? So essentially, this ERP, just explains the timelines and the process for how liquidated damages should be assessed if needed on projects if the BMP deficiencies and the BMP guidelines, as noted in the specifications, are not being followed. So obviously, this first starts with verbal notification. So you obviously you create the issue. Contractor does not upload the corrective action photo. You go out to the field. You see that the issue is not being corrected. So what you do then is you'll give them a verbal notification, right? Give them a verbal, say this needs to be fixed by this date. And then the next time this happens, you obviously give them a notice of noncompliance. And what helps with these BMP weekly forms and BMP issues, BMP deficiency issues, is you can track all of this. So you can track the notice of noncompliance. So you can track when you initially found the deficiency. You can track whether they uploaded corrective action or not. You can also, if this happens again, so let's say that a week passes by, then you go to the next BMP inspection and the same BMP deficiency happens, and you create the same issue, and they do the same thing. Then you have a history, and you can create a report in ACC. You can compile both of your BMP weekly inspections, or you can compile all the issues that are applicable, and you can easily export a report. And when you do this notice of noncompliance, where it is a written notice from the resident engineer, then you can back it up with actual live and documented data that you have in terms of, when you assessed it, they didn't upload corrective action, and you actually have hard data that you can rely upon when you're about to assess liquidated damages and when you're assessing this notice of noncompliance. And then after that, if the contractor is still not addressing the issue, then obviously that is when you get to the stage of assessing LDs, right? And this, in this guide and in the ERP, it's essentially a summary and main points of the ERP, but it essentially explains what needs to happen for you to assess the LDs here. I won't go through all of this, but be sure to take a look at the updated weekly BMP report guide that is on the wiki site here. This is the old one, this is a new one, and then also it explains a little bit about the ERP on the article itself. At the very bottom, as I showed you before, there's a compilation of all of the resources that are available to you for projects in terms of BMPs. And at the very bottom, as I showed you before, is the COCUA rubric for the BMP weekly and monthly inspections. Here in red, only applicable to MS4 areas, so that will be the BMP monthly forms, and also similarly the rain gauge report. So that is really it in terms of what I wanted to go over today on BMPs. Are there any questions? Have any of you utilized issues for BMP deficiencies on your project? Raise your virtual hand if you have been using issues. Seems like not a lot of people are up yet. John, thank you. Rolly, I see you're here. I know you use issues, so. Chan, thank you. But yes, opportunity for growth. It's something that we'll be checking for on the Kokura review. But in specific, what's most pertinent is following the procedure, right? Getting those weekly and monthly compliance forms in there, submitted, signed, so that we have a track for us and also for the BMP auditors, right? Not sure if the BMP auditors are on right now, but that is the way. So they have been going into your project in ACC, and this is where they checked for compliance. So they will reach out if they do not see these forms in ACC. So let's make sure that we're following the correct procedure, following best practices. And if you're not, then through the Kokura review, we'll be able to gauge that and provide recommendations for doing it better and to the best practice and procedure. Okay, is there any questions that do not have to do with BMP? I'm going to stop the recording.